Alright, Dad, hold on. It's a long way home. Okay. This is a Honda 3813, which you could probably see by the fact that it says 3813 on it. This is a liquid-cooled riding mower. Kind of an odd little thing. No idea if the battery's any good, but I'm guessing not. Nothing. What do you want to bet it's the original battery? That should do it. Jesus, is that an electric fuel? I think that's an electric fuel pump. Should probably unplug that because pretty sure there's no fuel in there. Just grass. Okay, fuel pump is unplugged. Truth. Oh, it goes clunk. Crankshaft doesn't turn. Oh no. That's not good. That is not good at all. 359 cc's of dickardness. Well, I've got a little movement. The crank will go about halfway around. The valves are moving, but it just kind of stops dead. Well, I finally got it to turn around on its own. You can see all the disgusting crap that came pouring out of cylinder 2 when I got her to turn over. Yes. Yeah, you motherfucker. Come on, baby. Ha, now. I can't get any spark out of this thing. The plug wires run back to the plastic timing cover back here. Okay, well you can barely see it, but here's the motor out. Lots of room in here. I wonder if I could fit like a 4-cylinder Accord motor in here. Well, here we go. I got the back cover off. We've got a stamped metal timing sprocket. Kind of odd. A big flywheel and a couple of magnetos. So this isn't some funky electronic ignition like I was worried it might be. This should be pretty simple. That's more like it. Alright, well now that I've got spark, I'll give it a little ether. Alright, one more time with feeling and clean plugs. Somewhat. Who dares disturb my slumber? I have no idea what these wires used to go to. Here's this thing's excuse for a generator. Got 2 coils in it. Well, I'm not going to say it's pretty, but it looks eminently salvageable. I can just tap some new wires into these where they're shot. Well, the original wiring had a silicone inner insulation and an outer insulation that looked like it was fiberglass or something. So clearly they were worried about heat with it being in there. I didn't have any of that nice special wire to use. I just had wire left over from wiring up some trailer lights. So I just wrapped it in this foil tape. If it was good enough to seal the hole in the back of the fireplace, it ought to be good enough for this. Well, I'm sure I could have wrapped those wires in something more difficult to feed back through the grommet, but it's fed back through now and those are installed and hopefully they'll work. So I'm going to go ahead and slap the flywheel back on. Okay, so I'm looking at this clutch here and it doesn't seem to be working right. I'm also noticing that this rod is hitting at a funny angle on the snubber and the snubber is adjusted in all the way. Okay, the clutch is broken loose now. So I thought this was funny. How many generations of mice called this thing home? How's this for a concept? Work on the damn thing somewhere it's light. Before I put the motor back on this thing, I figure I should make sure that the deck works. So I'm looking up underneath. Looks like all the parts are there, but I can't turn that by hand. Planting vegetables in here. I can get it to move a little bit, but that's more than I could when I started, and it's still not all the way around. I think most of the pulleys are fine. I think it's this one here. I think the bearing is seized. I knew I made this goose for something. Aha. Goose. Holy plant life, Batman. I'm going to go ahead and test the fuel pump here. It's located down there. There's the filter for it. I'm just going to put the end of the hose in this green nasty gas and see if it'll blow it out into this cup. Okay, I'm taking video of the clutch. The part on the inside, that is connected to the transaxle. That part goes up to the motor, which isn't in right now. It's in neutral. Watch what happens when I push it forward. Push it forward. Pretty sure it shouldn't be doing that. This is really bad. This is the brake piece, and oddly, okay, it's in neutral right now. So there's kind of a, this should be moving freely but spinning the wheels. But kind of got these sticking points, and if you run it into them, it'll spin the shaft until it, you can actually spin it for quite a while until you push it past. Maybe there's something in here that can solve this for me. Well, would have been nice if that was all it was, but no. I took the brake drum off. That shaft in there is exhibiting the exact same behavior that thing was. There's nothing weird with the brake. There's just something weird inside the box that's making it engage when it shouldn't be engaging. Setting up the camera because I assume parts are going to go spewing out in all directions. I'd like to catch them. No spewage. That's nice. If you ever wondered how lawn tractors do reverse, got a chain. This is probably the most complicated part of this box, and that's where I think the issue lies. Okay, so in the process of pulling this thing apart, I had to pull a bearing that was stuck, and I went after it with a puller. Turns out if you're using a ball joint type puller and it's off camber, or just not on straight because the shaft was the wrong size, the little metal shavings come off of it and get stuck in the bearing. So this is the easiest way that I have found to clean a bearing. Got it on my finger like this, and I've got a hose, a sprayer. Irrigation just kicked on, so it's lower pressure, but that's okay. So basically just spray it into the bearing. Bearing will speed up, water will go all through it, turn it around, do it from the other side. Well, I wasn't expecting that. There's no bearing, just a very nicely machined surface. I'm assuming the engagement bit just sort of pops up through there. So that's cool. This bottom one here, which I'm assuming, yeah, that'd have to be first gear. It's got these edges on it, and if I turn the drum, I can't really do it with one hand, but when I turn the drum, it's sort of between this and the edges of this, it binds up. Yeah, this is a little chewed up. I don't know how that would happen. You can't engage a gear on this thing without engaging the clutch. but I don't know. It was a little out of adjustment. And I was laughing at this because this is all the selector is. When you move the thing, they move down, up, come on you, there we go. And they sort of push in. Those pop in and out and engage the slots in these. I don't want to make it loose fitting on the shaft, so I'm only going to mess with the edges. I'm not going to do anything to the rest of this. If I turn this thing around, you know, the transmission's only driven the one way, so it'll just use the other side for engagement, and then this side can just be chowdered, not hurt anything. I also ground it down a little bit out here because it seemed like the impactor pushed it down a bit, which was probably not doing the thrust washer any favors. Oh, that'll work a little better. Put it all back together and it all works. I didn't have a new gasket, so I just used some Permatex Ultra Blue on the old gasket. Probably not the right way to do it, but it ought to do. Transaxle's back in. That was a massive pain. I'm not entirely certain how I got it out. I think it must have been brute force and nothing else, but I could not brute force it back in. You see the rear axles are captured in these little U channels here, and then there's bugger all clearance between the I guess clutch spring housing, and the crossmember here. I just pulled out my old friend the angle grinder, took a little bit off the bottom of this clutch housing. That and a swift kick finally got the SOB to seat. I've got the transaxle all reinstalled, all the linkages in, and I think mostly adjusted properly. It all seems to be working right, so hopefully it works right under power. I still need to put oil in it. I think it takes 1040. I need to do a little research to be sure. One other little thing I did, there's this bearing on the shifter here, and it was just open at the top. I don't know if there was originally a boot or this was just supposed to be sealed or what, but it was dead seized when I got it. I unseized it with channel locks and some penetrating oil. And then I noticed it was filling with water the next time it rained, so I just took a piece of inner tube and made it a little hat. The bad news is that it came off the jack stands and landed on the fuel pump. And as much as I love complaining about plastic parts, especially little nipples that always break off, yeah, I think this one was probably my bad for, you know, dropping a lawn tractor on top of it. This stuff says it's good for gasoline, so I just drilled a hole where the nozzle used to be, stuck it in through the hole. Hopefully that'll give it a little more strength than just gluing it to the outside. And then I just put a bunch of putty all around it. This is on the suction side too, so it's not like it's got to handle pressure. So I've got the shifter firmed up nicely and going between gears like it's supposed to. Also, this thing down here allows you to sort of clock this arm on the rod that goes down to, and it was loose, so I tightened that up, and it got rid of pretty much all of the slop. The other thing I did was to put a couple cut-up pieces of tranny fluid line between the rod and the little spring here, so that it doesn't vibrate. Transaxle's oiled up. You just need to throw the back of this thing back together. Okay, she's going back together here. I did one little modification on something that irritated me. This is the lever assembly that controls the deck height. It's normally mounted here, which means you have to take it out to get to this bolt to get the back off, which you have to do to get to the fuel pump. So I went ahead and notched that so that in the future I can just open this up a little bit with an open-end wrench, and then this whole back piece I can just pull off. I mean, obviously I got to get the other bolts off, but I don't have to pull that off anymore. I get the feeling I should have done this step a long time ago. Anyway, I got that off. I'm just going to leave it off for now. I'm going to throw the seat on here well enough to test it, and then if it all works, then I'll go to the trouble of painting that, painting the hood. That's still in good shape, so I won't bother painting it. This cowl piece back here needs paint. You know, just generally prettying it up before we put it back together and mow with it, because, you know, if you've got an ugly lawnmower, the grass just doesn't respect you. And if the grass doesn't respect you, you've already lost the war. Okay, the motor is bolted back on. I put new caps on the spark plugs, which didn't have caps on them for some reason. I'm hoping to dump a little bit of gasoline in this thing tonight, get it to fire. If it fires and runs, I have a new oil filter and new oil for it. If it doesn't fire and run, well, then there's not a whole lot of point in putting new oil and a new oil filter on it. Starter solenoid is no more. It was not built to be fixed, unfortunately. So, I've got my Redneck starter solenoid, which is 2 bolts that I just pressed together, and that should make this thing turn over. Okay. Well, the bolts do a pretty good job of welding each other together, but that's okay. I use bolts I didn't care about. Okay, I have power to the fuel pump in 3, 2, 1. Okay, it's just puking gas into the carburetor. I think I may have rigged the wrong lines to the wrong places. Alright, so I had another look at this carburetor. I was looking at my earlier pictures from when I tore it apart, and the gray line I had there was in fact going there, but it goes down to this thing, which has an uncapped thing there, and I don't know what's inside of this, or what it's for. My guess is it's some kind of like carbon canister or something for vapors from the bowl. And it's probably got a mud dauber, either alive, dead, or just remnants thereof, inside of it. And I took it off so that this can vent. The fuel pump ran for a minute and then kind of went put, 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 put. And gasoline isn't coming down into this carburetor. So I assume the fuel pump has basically pressurized this line up as much as it can. And yeah, so the carburetor might be okay. Here's a frightening thought. Speaking of frightening, you're a big son of a bitch, aren't you? Very big fucking Jerusalem cricket. Yeah, I got big feet. That's a big cricket. Okay, that's, wow, yeah. I think I'll put a rat on this thing, get some water in it, and change the oil, and just let it run for a little while, see if it runs any better. Before I could rehang the radiator, I need to repair it. This side has a little tab on it. This side has a little tab next to it. Okay, the surface is all cleaned up. I can see there's a fair bit of lead still left on these. So, hopefully it won't take too much to add a little bit more. Get it all stuffed back together here. Well, it's not the prettiest job, but should do the trick. Looks like this radiator got hit pretty hard at some point. But that's the nice thing about metal tanks. I filled up the radiator with just straight water. There's all kinds of crap in it. I'll probably run some washing soda or something through it, see if I can flush that crap out of there. It's dripping. Why is it dripping? Hopefully just because I spilled everywhere when I filled it from the hose. Anyway, I want to test it out, but it's a little dark for mowing, and I'm not going to throw the hood back on and use its headlights. Yeah, I got my sealed beam headlight on here, so I can see where the hell I'm going, and yeah. Everything seems to work great, except that the clutch has been shot. Other than that, everything is great. Yes, that's a spinning drive shaft. That's why I'm not wearing long pants. That's much more fun than I began. Look at this clutch ain't bad after all. Look here. Oh, what am I doing? Whoa.  1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, Alright, I'm going to wrap up this video here because it's getting kind of long. I've had fun working on this thing. Well, okay, I've had a hell of a time working on this thing, but yeah, it's nice to get it together and working, and hey, I am amazed at how well it runs considering how rough it was and how little I actually did to it. The clutch is locking up way better since I readjusted it a little bit. And yeah, it's actually pretty quick in 5th gear. It's got an amazing turning circle. You know, I think the only real problem with this thing at this point, apart from the fact that I haven't got around to putting it all back together, is, well, it might be too fun to put a motor deck back on. I'm not sure. A part 2 will be coming as soon as I get the body panels painted up and thrown back on. And, yeah. With any luck, be able to put some time back into this damn thing and get it together. That's